Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, 6 p.m., regular City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano.
Here.
Councilmember Papineau.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember Vandenberg.
Here.
Mayor Sandu.
Here. Please join us, silent prayer and flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, may I have a replay statement?
This meeting of the Galt City Council is recorded with closed captioning. The recording will be cablecast on Metro Cable Channel 14, the Local Government Affairs Channel, on the Comcast and Direct TV Uverse cable systems. The recording will also be video streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting replays Saturday, October 5th at 9 a.m. and Monday, October 7th at 9 a.m. on Metro Cable Channel 14. Once posted, the recording of this meeting can be viewed on demand at youtube.com/Metro Cable 14.
Thank you. Next agenda item C, Council, any agenda approval, addition, or a deletion? If none, then we can move to the next agenda item, presentation. There is no presentation. Next agenda item E, public comments.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the City Council on non-agenda items. The public comment section is for the City Council to receive comments, except for brief responses to questions. No discussion or action may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Consistent with the City Council procedural guidelines, the mayor reserves the right to shorten the time limit for speakers to ensure the efficient and timely completion of all city business on the agenda. We do have two. Tim Reed.
Go ahead, Tim.
It's on.
Good evening. Last time I was up here, I gave the annual report for the Public Safety Committee, and I promised to give a more frequent updates than the annual one. So we had a Public Safety Committee meeting last week. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, so I'm going off the minutes, and I'm hoping that Mayor Sandu can fill in anything that I miss. The first item was we approved the minutes from the July 22nd meeting. Item number 2 was traffic control on C Street, which was addressed by the Public Works Director, Mr. John Griffin. He said the construction is moving forward and gave good insight on the next phase. Item number 3 was the school threats and the vital. Hold on, my screen just. It was the school threat that was addressed by the chief, and I personally wanted to thank the police department and the police chief for their wonderful presence. I picked up my son at Lake Canyon. I saw at least 2 officers there. I picked up my other son at Liberty Ranch, and I saw at least 4 of them there. So I was very impressed, along with a lot of people on Facebook for their response to that. There was a question that was brought up about the Galt fire inspection, which was, or Galt, the First Baptist Church in Galt fire inspection, that was addressed by the deputy fire chief from Consumnes, and then street lights that were out over the weekend in the area of Blackhurst, Tottenham, and Maugham the evening of September 4th, and that was addressed by both the police chief and the public works director, and that issue has been resolved. And then we went on to the public works director gave an update on some truck parking on Amador Avenue. And then the police chief was going to research some parking limits on Amador Avenue as well. There were some other comments by other committee members around the same thing about truck parking, both on Amador and other places throughout the city. So there were some other things that people were going to look into, like the extent on the loading and unloading times at Walmart and on Twin Cities. And then the meeting was adjourned at 6:20. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. That's the exact thing we discussed in that meeting. And thank you, Chief, and thank you, John. You very well explained about the truck parking, and Chief also very much satisfied with all the committee member, what their proactive action was on the media. Thank you.
Mike Little?
Mayor, Council, my name is Mike Little. I'm the president of the Galt Police Officers Association. I come to you today to speak for our members out of the frustration and concern regarding the recent decision to create a classification for a code enforcement supervisor position, which supervises a potential single employee, yet receives significantly higher compensation than our top step sergeants inside the police department. I want to be clear, this has nothing to do with the employee himself, and I have the utmost respect for him, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time working alongside of him, and I truly do believe that he's an asset to the city and community alike. As you are aware, sergeants in the Galt Police Department hold critical leadership positions, managing not only multiple officers, specialized units, but also ensuring the safety and well-being of our community. They often work in high-stress environments, making split-second decisions that affect lives, all while risking their own safety. These responsibilities are immense, and the compensation for such a role should reflect the seriousness of the duties they perform. The creation of a code enforcement supervisor position with a salary that surpasses that of our top step sergeants raises serious questions about the city's priorities when it comes to public safety. While we acknowledge the importance of code enforcement, it is difficult to comprehend how a supervisory role overseeing one potential employee can be valued more highly than the role of a police sergeant who directly oversees the day-to-day operations of multiple operations and works to maintain community safety. This decision not only undermines the contributions of our sergeants, but also sends a disheartening message to all officers who dedicate themselves to protecting the people of Galt. It is critical that the city fairly compensates law enforcement positions that play a key role in maintaining the safety and security of our community. In the past year, the Galt Police Department has lost 5 officers with the potential to lose 2 more. The loss of personnel has deeply impacted the department, and the decisions like this only serve to downgrade morale and create further animosity with our ranks. Officers are feeling undervalued, which affects retention. We cannot afford to continue losing dedicated officers while continuing to serve a message that their role in the city is undervalued. We urge the council to ensure that compensation across city roles reflects the responsibilities and makes associated with those each positions. The GPOA is excited and committed to be working with the council and the city manager to collaboratively come up with a solution in the foreseen future. If you guys have any questions, you all have my phone number. Feel free to call me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Mike, you might be, I have just for, I don't know who will be, just a clarification. His job was before under the police department, or he was under community development director, just for my clarification. You know, the job we did the classification, job was under police department, or his job was previously under community development director?
The position of code enforcement officer was most recently under community development. However, it has been in the police department briefly in the past, but it was a different person that worked the position. The person currently in code enforcement actually worked in PD and got their start in police department, working in a different position.
Thank you. Thank you just for the clarification. Tina, any other public comment?
Jerry Sauter.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Just want to say thank you to Public Works for keeping residents informed of the myriad of construction projects, but did just want to kind of echo a slight frustration as a resident of having all of these projects scheduled at the same time. They're very disruptive, and it would be nice if they could be staggered. The Simmerhorn one has impacted me personally because I live over in that area. The challenges with having them all done at the same time has been, having to find different routes, having to go a different way, and then some of the alternative routes then themselves become under construction. So, excuse me, please. I would just like to ask if it's possible to stagger those construction projects, and also if we can stick to the timelines too. I believe there was a lane adjustment scheduled for Monday, and I drove that way today, and there wasn't even a cone set up yet. So it would be nice if we could get some information if those timelines are going to change. So thank you.
Thank you.
That is it.
Because these are the public comment that are very important for everybody. Any council member want to make any comment or anything on these public comments? If it's none, then I'm going to move to the next agenda item. Next agenda item F, report by council members on regional board, commission and committee. Vice Mayor Lozano.
Yes, I have a couple. The first one was on January 19th. We had our SIGCOG meeting in Placerville. We did a bus tour of Apple Hill prior to, and saw how they've worked with Caltrans and did some things to improve the access into the Apple Hill area in Camino. Also, during the SIGCOG meeting, we also had a presentation from the transportation agency there about how they're using some traffic control devices coming up here in the future to ensure evacuation is appropriate when they need it. And it's actually pretty informative, and if you'd like, you can see the SACOG meeting online. Then also had this week we have on Thursday a SACOG meeting to talk about the transportation issues regarding the MTPSCS, and that is going to be voted on in October. And so tomorrow, Thursday, we'll have the first run at it. So. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Council Member Papano.
On September 18th, I attended the Metro Cable Television Commission meeting. The highlights were, in spite of the continued reduction in revenue from cable TV providers, we did manage to once again pass a balanced budget. And then closed session, we got one step closer to a contract with a new director for the commission. There was a air quality district meeting on the 26th. Unfortunately, I had something urgent come up at work right before and was not able to attend. That's all I have.
Thank you. Council Member Farmer.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Council Member Benenberg.
I have nothing to report as well.
Thank you. Myself, I did attend the meeting, and that's the first time I attend that meeting. That meeting was City Selection Committee of Sacramento County. The committee is comprised of a mayor from each incorporated city within the county. California Government Code, the purpose of committee to be appointed city representative to the board, commission, and agency as required by law. And that's what last, there is only two things we approved last time. That committee have a meeting in 2018. That's why they said they don't have the schedule with all the mayor in this area. So we did approve the May 3rd, 2018 minutes of City Selection Committee of Sacramento. And then also we appointed a chairman and vice chairman of the City Selection Committee. Chairperson was from Citrus Heights, name is Tim Schaffer, and the vice mayor was Lisa Kaplan, he was in Sacramento City. And that's all on the regional committee and commissions. Thank you. Next agenda item, information consent calendar. It is recommended that item 1 through 5 be acted on simultaneously unless a separate discussion and or action is requested by a council member. Any council member wants to pull any item from the consent calendar? If it's none, then I'm going to read these consent calendar. Number 1, receive and file warrant for period ending September 18, 2024. Number 2, minutes of regular meeting of September 17, 2024. Number 3, treasury report for period ending August 2024. Number 4, approval of purchase agreement of fuel delivery. Number 5, cancellation of November 5th, 2024 City Council meeting. I may have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
It's moved by Council Member Papano, second by Vice Mayor Lozano. Madam Clerk, may have a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Lozano?
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Vandenberg? Mayor Sandu?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next agenda item H, schedule matter notice of public hearing. There is no scheduled matter and notice of public hearing. Next agenda item regular calendar. Item number I1, City Attorney's Office. Subject, adoption of resolution declaring the city's intention to transition from at-large to district-based election. Mr. Splendorio.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On August 26, 2024, and this letter has been published in the agenda packet over the last couple of meetings. It's been discussion of in closed session. The city received a letter from Shankman and Hughes, from Kevin Shankman specifically. He's notorious for sending letters up and down the state to public agencies, alleging and claiming that the public agencies at-large elections are violating the California Voting Rights Act. We received such letter on August 26th, essentially alleging that the city's current voting structure creates dilution in the ability of Latino voters to elect candidates of their choice or to otherwise influence the outcome of city elections. There are presumptions, without going into too much legislative background, but the legislative theory behind this California Voting Rights Act is that certain protected classes, minority voters, are disenfranchised if election results year after year go one way as opposed to non-minority voters. And the legislative remedy for that legislative deemed problem is that to go to some form of district elections in the public agencies. And the idea is it will help concentrate the voting power and prevent dilution. because in the district election, the concept is that certain voters will have they may be a majority district. So in other words, you may have a district with a majority minorities, and then therefore their candidate, so to speak, their presumed candidate would have a greater chance of being elected. This letter that we received is a prerequisite to filing a lawsuit against the city, a lawsuit that as of this date, no cities has successfully defended, in which many cities have paid millions of dollars in plaintiffs' attorneys' fees. The most notable example has been the city of Santa Monica that has expended tens of millions in their own defense. And at least as of last year or earlier in this year, I would say at least 6 months ago, the plaintiffs had said there was about $30 million of attorney's fees that they would be seeking when they win. One of the things about the CVR is the plaintiffs' attorneys are entitled to their attorney's fees as well. Just to get a little more background, again, CVRA was enacted in 2003. It's trying to prevent voter dilution. There's a low threshold of proof required. Vote dilution occurs when the votes of the protected class members are outweighed or diluted by the votes of the presumably non-minority voters. This can be alleged by a review of voting patterns, and you don't have to prove this is actually occurring. Also, unlike the Federal Voting Rights Act, under the CVRA, you do not have to establish discriminatory intent, historical discrimination, or that minority voters live in a geographically compact part of the city. As a result of the low threshold of proof required, countless public agencies throughout California have received this letter that we've received and similar ones. There is a low probability of litigation success and the potential for being required to pay plaintiffs' attorney's fees, all out of the general fund. This is not the kind of claim that would be covered by our risk management, TPA, JPA funds. This would be purely general funds. Most agencies have voluntarily changed to by-district elections. As a respite from these challenges, it's important to note that the legislature, while they haven't changed the substantive provisions of the California Voting Rights Act, they did recognize that public agencies were being were facing significant attorney's fees claims even before they got to litigation and were formally sued. So they created a safe harbor provision in the CVRA that basically allows public agencies to quote unquote voluntarily transition to districts before they get sued. And so the first step in the safe harbor process is for the city to adopt a resolution of intention to just basically state its intention to transition to districts, to go to a district-based election. And then from there, you normally have 90 days to basically hold 4 public hearings, where the last of 2, which you will actually be reviewing and discussing what the potential maps will look like. And then you would adopt. You typically have to do that in 90 days. We've got an extension from Mr. Shankman for an additional 90 days, so the city will have 180 days here to complete the maps process. It's important to clarify, no decisions have been made, obviously, as to what the maps will look like and that kind of thing. That has to be done with the work of a demographer that the city will have to retain to help look at that data. You're looking at, and there's all sorts of ways you figure out those maps, and that will be discussed at the future public hearings. But essentially, you're looking at communities of interest, you're looking at common borders, you're looking at, in a way that the districts don't also exacerbate or further contribute to voter dilution. And there's 2 ways that can happen. One is what they call cracking, where you segment or fragment a minority members of the electorate amongst the district, so you weaken their voting power, or you pack them all into one district, and so you concentrate there and you dilute it that way. So it's either cracking or packing, so to speak. So if the city adopts, so the recommendation is to adopt the resolution of intention to move forward with that process. Again, no decisions have been made or evaluated in terms of what that will look like. The data has to speak for itself. And then if we do that, if the maps are adopted, and we avail ourselves of the 180 days to complete that, we will not be entitled to, we won't have to pay any attorney's fees for litigation, but we would be required still, even under the safe harbor, to reimburse Mr. Shankman for any reasonable attorney's fees he's accrued up to that point, which is not to exceed $40,000. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Any council member have any comment or any concern?
Sure, I'll kick it off. I mean, some of this stuff is obviously we discussed prior to this meeting as it was brought to closed session under a litigation. But now that it's out as a public item, I just want to make some comments and have some questions, Frank, just for the public basically to understand. So essentially, so the public understands, we would be potentially breaking the city up into 5 districts. Each district would elect one of the 5 council members. So in this scenario, if someone ran in a district and there was no opposing person to run, that person would automatically be elected, correct?
Correct.
And as we've seen by the school board elections in our town, which are district, that occurs almost every time in most of the districts, including the one for the race that's going on right now, where only one district is contested. So further troubling is, and I wanted to bring up this hypothetical, is the FPPC rules still apply for conflicts of interest. So this is hypothetically, let's say that Mr. Sandu is part of District 1, and there is an item coming up about a park that's nearby his home. He is the sole representation for all those people in that district on that particular vote. But because of conflict of interest rules, if he lived too close, he would have to recuse himself for that vote, which means that no one would have their representation in that district, correct?
Correct.
So as you can see, without further getting into further hypotheticals, and those maybe are watching at home, and there's not many people here, I look at this as like a disguise for, they're trying to make it sound like it's going to be more democratic by giving, in this case, Hispanics a better chance to be elected, but really what it's doing is to taking democracy away. This will completely change politics in Galt, and not for the good. It's going to completely destroy our city, and in my opinion, it's going to just divide the city. You're going to have scenarios where someone might email a council member and say, hey, I have a problem at Walker Park, can you help us? Oh, sorry, you're going to have to email Councilman so-and-so because that's not my district. And that's what's going to happen. And it's terrible, and this is nothing more than extortion, in my opinion. Now, I do agree that, you know, it's not a good use of taxpayer dollars to fight this. We've been briefed on what the possible legal and fees could be to fight it, and obviously using Santa Monica as an example, we could see. And that's clearly not in the best interest of the city of Galt to do that. What further troubles me is that if they had looked at the history, they obviously don't even know the makeup of the current council with Mr. Sandu and Mr. Lozano on the council, which, I mean, they're clearly saying that we don't have. And if they looked back, they would have seen that we've had Hispanic candidates. The most recent would be Christina de la Cruz, who was not only a Hispanic, but she was a woman, and she served 1 term as mayor. So the precedent that says that we can't, you know, that if you're Hispanic or any other ethnicity doesn't have a fair shot. I mean, Mr. Sandu represents probably less than 4% of the population of Galt in race. It's just completely ridiculous. And so, unfortunately, we're kind of, you know, up against a wall on this, but I just want to go on note that saying that this is just it's gonna change Galt for the worse, and I'm afraid that you're gonna have some very terrible people getting on city council because they're unopposed, and it's gonna be very divisive and very undemocratic. So just want to state that for the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just have one question, and I know the answer already, but I think it's important for the public to know. We're talking about $40,000 as a max for the plaintiff's attorney's fees, regardless of whether we do anything, or regardless of whether we go to by district or not right now.
Right now, but if we don't, then the CVRA is still on the, so if we don't adopt maps within the 180 days and the maps are not consistent with the data, yeah, we would open ourselves up to litigation. So this is a safe harbor provision to do all that stuff and get it adopted. But if basically you push the envelope in terms of this,
Right.
and we get past that 180 days, then that 40,000 balloons really quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just say for the sake of argument that we decide to go forward and we get everything approved and we do it right, do it correctly enough so that we're not subject to litigation. There's 40,000 there. What is the cost or general ballpark figure for a demographer?
About 30
So 70,000 as opposed to millions.
millions, yeah.
Okay. I'll reserve the rest of my comment until we hear public.
Thank you.
One thing that's worth pointing out too, that we've seen this coming for a long time as each jurisdiction in the state has gone through it. As Frank mentioned, none with success of fighting it. There have been jurisdictions that thought they could preempt this by implementing it before they got this notice and got sued. And in a lot of those cases, they've come back and sued them saying that the plan they implemented was inadequate, so they still get their $40,000 for that suit. So that kind of makes it clear what this is really all about. And that's my only thought.
Mr. Splendario, can you briefly go over the process of drawing up the districts, the demographer, et
Yeah.
cetera?
So the demographer is going to look at all the data of citizen voting age population in the city and determine where everyone lives. And then they have to draw maps consistent with what they call the communities of interest. So they're going to look at the city of Galt map and they're going to figure out natural corridors, natural boundaries, natural markers that you would divide the city. And then they're going to pair that, overlay that with the data of the different racial profile of the city. And they're trying to form natural communities of interest based on that. And it, what they're trying, with the statute, and the statute has a variety of factors that you look at in drawing those maps up, but essentially it needs to be a bona fide map supported by data that is not gerrymandered, right? It's not intended to manipulate a certain outcome. And then again, even when you draw those maps, you need to make sure it's not done to crack or to pack minority voters, as I just alluded to earlier. But essentially, the demographer is going to be on board. There's going to be at least 4 public hearings. The first 2 public hearings, there will be no draft maps looked at. It'll just be information for the public. More of this types of thing will be discussed. And then at least the last 2 public hearings, there will be some draft maps where the council can look at, discuss it, and that sort of thing. And then you would vote, and you would adopt an ordinance at the same time, defining those boundaries, approving the maps. And then you would have a staggered, all the current incumbents would remain, at the time that the maps are adopted, whoever the current council members would remain at large, but there would just be a phase out over the next 2 election cycles.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment, same thing, Council Member Farmer and Mayor Lozano. I'm agree with them too if we need to move to the district. Reality is the letter is the alleges. That's mean as a city, this is my person, nothing doing wrong, but sometimes we have to compromise. Especially nobody wants public money to go to the attorney at $1 million. And that's the reason even they alleges there is nothing. Usually we will, if they just go to the court, then we really find out what was doing for last 8 years. I believing there's nothing wrong. Even like in Maya, I have only 2% in there, and these people, citizen, give me the opportunity for 2 terms, 8 years to serve this city. What at the end, because when going to, as on the report, as the attorney mentioned, if we're going that path, and I think no council member wants to spend, we never know the million of dollars to the public money. So the other thing, Frank, when is, if we have to do the district, maybe 5 districts, right? how many cities around us, they already went through their process?
You know, I've looked at that before. I can't say right off the top of my head. I can just tell you that the latest one was Rancho Cordova. They just got the letter and went less than a year ago, and they were 5 at-large members with a rotating mayor system. They went to 5 districts within the last year. Obviously, all the adjacent school boards have gotten the letter. School districts have gotten the letters. They've switched over. I think the only city in Sacramento County, and I'm going on a limb by saying this, that hasn't received the letter yet is Isleton. And obviously they're a little unique because they're extremely small. So.
All right, thank you. Any council member, any comment? If not, I would like to open for public comment on this agenda item.
Jerry Sauter.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I would just like to echo Councilman Farmer's comments regarding this method in which the city is being compelled to change from the at-large system to the district system. As a resident, I am concerned that we'll have council members that are running unopposed, so I no longer have a choice from a slate of candidates to fill the at-large position. I also understand as a smaller city, what did we have, maybe 9,000 votes total in the last election, that the at-large system is actually preferred in some instances to district because you're not having it, what's my district going to get, 500 votes, 700 votes for one council person? So I am concerned about the changes that this is going to make, and I also, quite frankly, take a dim view of the fact that it's an attorney, pressuring us into making these kinds of changes. This isn't something that the residents have asked for. It's not something that we would like to see happen, I think. But unfortunately, with the state legislation and them opening this up for, this is how they get cities to do what they want, kind of like some of the other things that we have in front of us, like growth and affordable housing and garbage mandates and things like that, is that the attorneys go ahead and run the show. So I wish you guys could vote it down, but I understand protecting the city from expensive litigation, and that's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Tim Reed.
Good evening again. I think you guys already know what I'm going to say. I'm one of the 3 candidates that are going for the 2 open spots for this next go-around. Okay, your 3 candidates right now live nowhere near each other. So if those were one of the districts, I or Bonnie or Matt would automatically be in, no matter what the residents and the rest of the city had to say, right? That's one of the things that I think we should look at, because every single person in the city needs a voice in their election, no matter if it is the person that's in this district or that district, because you all represent the whole city. And that's the way that we need to keep it, because you're going to, I think it's going to do the complete opposite of what they think it's going to do. A lot of people are going to think that they don't have a voice when it comes down to that, because we only had 5 total people that pulled paperwork to even run for city council. So now when the 3 positions open up next go around, if we don't have somebody that runs or that's in one of your districts, then what are we going to do? Right, we're going to have an open seat. We can't have that, right? Because if we have an open seat and then 2 of the council members are unable to come, then we don't have a quorum. And then we're fighting the problems that we're fighting on some of our committees, where we can't have meetings because we can't have people to come because we have open seats that shouldn't be that way. So I'm not in favor. I would hope that you guys, I understand all of the legals and how we don't want to do this, but we need to take into consideration what's best for the city, the people in the city, and we're here to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Splendario.
Yes.
If if a seat is left open, what is the procedure
You would just fill it.
commonly used
You would fill a vacancy by an appointment
of the city?
of the city council.
Thank you. And that could be at large?
No, it has to be somebody from that district.
So let me get this straight. So nobody runs for District 5, just make a number up. So nobody runs for District 5. Then we have an empty seat. So then the council would solicit applications to make an appointment, but only people from District 5 can apply. So the people that nobody wanted to apply to run in the first place, probably unopposed, now decide we have to hope and cross our fingers that somebody would step up and go, yeah, I guess, you know what? I guess I'll be a council member, sure, I'll do it, right?
Yeah.
So, well, sorry. The other thing I wanted to point out is that, you know, I lost my train of thought with that, so go ahead, Jay, I'll circle back. Yeah. Oh, we have more public comment too, sorry.
Okay, public comment, please.
Bonnie Rodriguez.
So tall. Many of the things that were brought up were questions that I had, especially about that appointment, if it did have to be from that district, which is, again, very unfortunate. I don't want you to fight it. It's not worth all the millions of dollars. But I do want you to waste this attorney's time way over the $40,000 that you know he's going to charge us anyway. So whatever we can do, keeping some things under, because looking at the demographic, our last census actually showed that we were 51% Hispanic. The minority is not a minority in our town. I understand they're a protected class, I get that, but they're not a minority here. So it is, like Mr. Papanow said, this is all about money from that attorney. One of the other things I do want to point out, because I did read that letter, and the two names that that gentleman mentioned, I will tell their story because I was part of that story. The first gentleman filed his papers and never did anything else, never reached out. We as a newspaper reached out to him. He said, I don't want to do any of it. He didn't even run. The second person, same thing. He's a little bit more polite about it though. However, 2 years later, he ran for assembly in this area. I interviewed him for that position and I asked him about his run for city council. And he said, oh, I just needed my name on a ballot so that I could say, because I knew I was going to run for assembly. They had no intention to be here in Galt up in your seat, ever. And those are the two examples that this guy pulls into this. So made me angry. I actually made a few phone calls because I was so angry. It just is so ridiculous because this is just 100% greed and bullying. And but I get that we have to comply. But please, let's spend that money because he's going to come after us anyway. He's going to want that $40,000 one way or another. Let's make him actually work for it. It's my understanding he has to actually have a complainant to be able to charge further beyond the research they've already done right now. It'll be interesting to see what transpires because if he uses those two, I will be the first to call them out very publicly before I get on the dais. So, but anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Don't waste the money now, but let's waste his money.
Thank you.
Phyllis Johnson.
Thank you. My first question is regarding, I've heard it and I've read it, is this only at the city level or are we talking federal elections like what's coming up right now? Can somebody answer me, please?
City only.
City only.
Thank you. And who has the final say on it? The mapping or whatever that you were talking about?
Oh, the city council will discuss that in a public hearing with input from the public.
Okay, but from what I just heard, one of them could be eliminated in this district thing, so then what's going to happen? It's kind of, can they vote for and against it?
What,
I'm a little confused on this. You got to help me.
when implemented, the districts will be activated as each election cycle occurs. So everybody stays, one election cycle will affect that election, that group.
Gotcha.
Next election cycle will affect the rest of the council.
Forgive my ignorance, but thank you. I was very confused on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
No more public comment.
Thank you. Now I'm going to bring it back to the council. If any more comment before we
So
move to...
there was a hypothetical scenario that we talked about, Mr. Splendario, and then it was brought to my attention that I guess there's some neighboring cities that do it, and that is to have 4 districts and then elect a mayor at large, so the one mayor position would be at large. And I know we had a discussion, and you said that you were concerned that this particular attorney would not accept that and they would pursue, but if there's other cities that are doing that in our area, and they're being compliant, then...
I would just say that it has to be something that is going to be specific to every city based on its own demographic data. So it's really going to come down to what the demographer when the demographer looks at the data, all the demographic data, and then can start to recommend. I will say this, the CVRA does not go away if we have any at-large component to it. So in other words, we're still at risk. And so if we go to 4+1, we could do that, but it needs to be supported by the data in a persuasive way, because we would need this attorney to basically sign off on that. And if he doesn't, we will remain at risk. So all I can say is it's absolutely a possibility we can look at. I know Elk Grove and Manteca, I believe, are 4+1, but they historically, as long as I know, they've always been 1, and that was several years ago. So I don't know. Those are the kind of conversations, things we can look at later. But I'm just telling you that would remain a risk if we do that.
So, I mean, I know tonight we're just looking for a resolution of intent to transition. So
Yeah.
the final decisions on what we're doing
Exactly.
is open, and we still have, demographer has to be involved, and that still could come into play if we decide. But I would like to, for myself, I would like to see research on that and how Elk Grove is able to, if they're actually not compliant by what they are, and so on, just because I want to know all the options.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if that was a scenario, and I know you already explained this, and you're very clear about that you could still be in violation compared to, as Mr. whatever his name is, Mr. Malibu, we'll call him, interprets it. But at least that there would be some sort of at-large, or at least the mayor who would be the leader of the city council could be someone who could be elected from the city at large. And I feel like there's some semblance of democracy in that scenario. So my second question is, in regards to what Ms. Rodriguez mentioned, I find it fascinating that if the census says that the Hispanics are not the minority, then, I mean, aren't we being a little racist by saying, like, are we going to say, well, it's not fair to the Asian community because we don't have an Asian candidate, or we don't have an African-American candidate? I mean, there's other ethnicities in Galt that are clearly minorities, and they're not being talked about in his letter, but the one race that he mentions in his letter happens to be the majority. So that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, I think I don't want to speak for him, but I think the theory in his letter is, remember, the key legislative theory behind the CVRA is voter dilution, right? And so in terms of where Mr. Shankman is coming from, because you have a majority or a large segment of the city that has a one minority, and based upon voting records and voting history in the city, he's seen that that's being underrepresented. So in that sense, that's why he's singling out the Latino community.
Yeah, and I know you don't know what's in his head. And again,
Right.
It's all about money. It really,
Right.
We know that. But I just think it's funny that he's basically essentially saying that we have a city that that is made up of 51% of a certain ethnicity can't elect a representative of their own race, which is ridiculous because they totally could. And they've done it in the past. I know at least 4 Hispanic candidates prior to this council. There's been at least 4 in the last 20 years that I know of, not including the 2 that she mentioned. Well, actually, maybe a little more than 20. It's probably about 30. But anyways, when Galt was much smaller, by the way. So anyways, that's all I have to say. Again, the city is not going to, we wouldn't be fairly representing the city by spending millions of dollars fighting this when inevitably we would lose. And it would just be for naught, and it would be a waste of money. Although, I know everybody on this council would wish to fight it if we could, but That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, just
Mayor.
one comment. I just reserved a couple of things for the end. This is the second time as an elected member that I've been posed with this question, not quite in this same manner with a letter. And I certainly don't support the philosophy behind by district voting. I think that it does a couple of things that have been mentioned. It allows for any citizen living in any district to only have one representative as opposed to 5. I think if we were to pull the hard data, it would show that more seats that are up for election by district go unopposed than not. There's an agency, a public agency that is in the South County here that in December will have 4 uncontested people on the board, and that's been through 2 election cycles. So point well taken, Mr. Farmer. That's absolutely true. I would just say this to the citizens. There is the possibility that somebody is elected to the council by district, or otherwise anyway, that has no concern for anything other than their area. When choosing to vote, that would be one of the questions I ask, is tell me about how you're going to develop policy being one person, one district on something that's not in your district. And so to ensure that they return phone calls and emails regardless of where they sit and what district they're in. And so I think it is the right thing to do for the citizens to move forward, and I will not be making the motion to move forward for personal reasons, but I will certainly support the staff's information and certainly the public's input on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of echoing that and throwing a little ray of sunshine into all the doom and gloom. If you're, to borrow Sean's example, if you're the elected council member from District 5 and you choose to ignore the calls and emails that you get from Districts 1 through 4, then I would hope that the rest of the city would make an effort to find somebody within that district to boot you out. So, yes, they're elected by district, but that doesn't mean that they ignore or don't make decisions with the best interest of the entire city. So, you know, it's not the complete end of the world.
Thank you. If nobody have no comments, then I'm going to ask, may I have a motion to approve that item number I1?
I'll move to approve it.
Is moved by Council Member Poppner, second by J. Betterberg. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano?
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer?
First, my apologies to the mayor for putting you on the spot right now, but my vote is a no this evening.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Mayor Sandu?
Aye. Motion passes by 4-0. Thank you.
4-1.
The motion passes by 4-1. Thank you. Next agenda item is I2, Public Work Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. John Griffin, Director of Public Works. The item before you tonight is step 1 in a process to annex the Elliott Ranch Villages 2 and 3 into CFD 2020-1. And this is accomplished by having the City Council adopt a resolution formally declaring their intent to annex these parcels into CFD 2020-1 based on a written petition we have received from the developer. Annexation into CFD 2020-1 is a condition of approval for the Elliott Ranch project. The purpose of CFD 2020-1 is to create a continuous funding source for police services, fire services, and maintenance services to ensure new development projects mitigate their impacts. For a little background on location, Elliott Ranch Villages 2 and 3 is generally bound by Simmerhorn to the north, Simmerhorn Road to the north, Crystal Way to the west, Marengo Road to the east, and Basso Road to the south. Village 2 consists of 112 parcels, and Village 3 consists of 193 parcels for a total of 305 parcels. Should these parcels annex into CFD 2020-1, then upon build-out of these two villages, the city will annually receive approximately $200,000 in revenue for municipal police services, special tax A, approximately $100,000 in revenue for fire and ambulance and paramedic services, special tax B, that will go to Casumna CSD, and approximately $300,000 a year in revenue for maintenance services that are allocated to streets and roadways, streetlights, and parks, parkways, and open space. That's special tax C. In addition, these assessments adjust annually for inflation. So tonight, again, our recommendation is council would adopt a resolution formally declaring their intention to annex Elliott Ranch Villages 2 and 3 into CFD 2020-1. And should the council adopt said resolution, staff will then schedule a public hearing on November 19th to formally annex these parcels into CFD 2020-1. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Thank you. Council member, any comment or any
Yes,
question?
I will, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mr. Griffin, just for transparency reasons, as I know some people don't, a lot of people don't watch the meetings, they don't understand what these are. We're not assessing a tax onto an area where people live already. This is an undeveloped area. We've done this for quite a few of the prior new developments over the last few years, correct?
That is correct. This would actually be the 8th annexation into the CFD, and yes,
Right.
at this time,
So-
those parcels are, there's no homes on those parcels.
And so one question I get a lot, and I think it's just comes from just people not understanding or maybe, just not really paying attention to things. No offense. But I hear a comment frequently where people say, we need to have these new developments paying their fair share. We need, and they're acting like, for some reason that these houses come in and it's like all the financial burden's gonna be on the rest of us for whatever, everything from water to, my water bill went up because we built these 500 homes over here, and that's why, so this is an example that we've done 8 times, right, of how these developments are paying their fair share, and you clearly dictated the split of the money. So then my next question is, with the split of the money, so maybe you can answer this, Mr. Arias, but so let's use the $300,000 for the streets and parks. So that money, I'm assuming, gets dispersed in some fashion between parks and public works, that segment for streets, the $300K, that
Yeah,
piece
that's
of it?
correct. I mean, it gets allocated into its own account and then is allocated toward each department based on need through the budget process.
Right, okay. And is that, and it's dispersed, so like, for example, so Parks is Fund 06, so Fund 06 would get a certain portion of that portion?
Well, it wouldn't go to 06, it would just go to Parks and Rec for availability to use for maintenance, but wouldn't be transferred into 06.
Okay, so in that hypothetical, I'm just trying to think, and I don't know why I've never asked this before, but so, we have Fund 06, and then we have Measure Q currently, those are two we could consider that are being used for Parks and Rec. So this money for parks, just the little piece that's carved out for parks, would essentially be in a different fund, but is actually part of the budget to use.
They have others too. There's a lighting and landscape district
Right.
that they also siphon
Right.
from. So there's a handful of different
Okay.
accounts where they get funded.
And this is again for the public. This is when we started doing these in in 2020, right? That's when we first. It was 4 years ago. We started doing this to try to, fix the broken lighting and landscape districts, which are not functional. They're just not working, and they don't work in a lot of municipalities. So we've went away from that. So this is the progress of correcting that over time, right?
Correct.
So, okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you, John.
Yep.
Any other council member? All right, myself, just for the clarification, John, you know that all these parcel number, there are 8 parcel number, right?
Correct, yes.
And there is, by Marengo, there is, I believe, exempt excluded area. What that mean?
Let me pull up the map and double check. It is probably either it's
Park?
probably the future school site or it would be a park site, or any type of public site, public use site.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that's it myself. If there is any public comment on this agenda item?
No comment.
There is no public comment. I'm gonna go back, ask the council member again if anybody have any comment.
Yeah, just one last question. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. How many parcels are in Elliott Ranch? I know you said, but I didn't catch it.
These are two of the three villages. These two are a combined 305 parcels. Village 1, which will, happen later, I want to say is in the 100, 110, 120 units. So
Roughly about 425 total-ish?
Yeah.
Around that, okay.
could be in that range, yeah, maybe.
Super rough number. Okay, thank you.
All right, if nobody have any comment, any question, then I will ask the motion to approve that agenda item I2.
So moved.
Is moved by Council Member Benenberg,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Lozano. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano?
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Mayor Sandu?
Aye, motion passes by 5-0. Thank you. Next agenda item, communication.
None.
There is no communication. City clerk's report.
None.
There is no report from the city clerk's office. Number L, comments by staff.
Public Works Director John Griffin has a comment.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. I just would like to give council an update on a status of a number of capital projects. We are now out to bid on the Pool Slide project. The current bid date is October 17th. Staying on the subject of park projects, we will be starting construction tomorrow on the courtyard project for the new Park and Rec facility on Elm. The third project, the skate park, the RFP for design services is out on the streets. Proposals are due on October 24th. And then another park project, we have an RFP for design services for the Emerald Vista Trail Gap Closure Project. That is also out in the streets, and proposals are due on Thursday. And then last Thursday, we also received proposals for the Safety Action Plan, and that was a grant-funded project from the US DOT. So just quick status on projects that are, very, very fresh. And then also, again, I just want to touch on what one of the members of public said. There are a number of active road closures and detours that are tied to the construction projects, both city projects and development projects. And I recognize, these have a significant impact on the community, and I understand the public's frustration. Also, being a resident, I personally know these impacts are not easy to deal with, and I've also heard from a number of friends and neighbors on these impacts that they've had because of these road closures. So as we continue, I understand and empathize with the public on their frustrations, and I ask just for further patience while we continue to work on these projects. And as a reminder, these are temporary, and in the end, we're going to see a much more beautiful community because of these projects. Thank you.
Police Chief Kalinowski.
Mayor and Council, just a reminder that tomorrow is National Coffee with a Cop Day. So as such, from 9 to 11, this time we will be at Cafe Latte. We rotate through the community. Again, 9 to 11, so I'll have staff there. And bring your concerns or questions, and we'd be happy to answer those. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next agenda item M, comments by city council members, future agenda item. Vice Mayor Lozano.
Yeah, no future agenda items, but I do want to mention that this Friday at 1 p.m., Planning Commissioner Hood and I will be participating in the Cal City's City Political Action Committee Cornhole Tournament at Drake's in West Sacramento. We hope to come home with a trophy. However, he wanted me to point out that it's highly unlikely. I don't know if that's because of me or him, but maybe both. So have that going on, and then just a reminder of the trunk or treat down in Old Town at the end of the month, 26th, I believe it is. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Papineau?
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Farmer?
Well, I'll just take Kevin's time then. I have just a few things, and then I do have a future agenda I'd like to pitch to the council. But first, John, I had a couple questions. So I think it was mentioned in public comment, a road closure that was supposed to have started but didn't. I'm assuming that's the Carillion, because that was the lane closure, partial closures at Carillion, which are supposed to start today, but I guess it didn't. Is that?
I will be investigating that. I guess that is the case. That was supposed to be, yes, a lane shift to facilitate construction of the sewer force main. There's been a the developer constructed the force main along the trail, and now this is the part where it will connect to the existing lift station at Vintage Oak and Carillion. So it sounds like that's slipped a little behind schedule.
Okay. And I just want to mention that, C Street looks like it's coming along. I've seen new sidewalks on Higher One Side, so it looks like they're hustling today. They had a ton of dump trucks out there, which looked like road base.
Yeah, that was PG&E. We were able to convince them to move up their work to allow for earlier paving for the first phase.
Okay.
They were scheduled for roughly 2 to 3 weeks from now to lower an existing gas line. And so by them coming out sooner, we've been able to, move everything forward a couple weeks.
Okay. So then it'd be safe to say, I know that there was a tentative late October when the shift would happen, the one way would shift to the other side of the street. Does it look realistic that that's still possible? I know construction and anything can happen, but.
Correct. That is, yep.
Okay.
As of now, that's the current schedule, and that's our plan.
Okay. I was asked by some people to get updates, so, and I appreciate you guys do put stuff online, but people still come and ask, so.
Of course.
And then, let's see. I wanted to mention that City Hall looked nice when I came in this morning. I know Armando's not here, so I don't know if it was Parks and Recreation. Because I'm always looking for, it's a thing. I come in, I can always find one piece of trash to pick up. It's always laying there. It's like a thing for me. And I was like, oh, not only is there no trash, but there's like new landscaping. But what? Couldn't believe it. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's the little things. And then with that is my future agenda item. And I don't know if we need to really, I don't know why anybody begins this, but the last few times I've come into Galt, I tend to go to Lodi on Lower Sacramento Road. And as we all know, there's several entry points to Galt from outside our community, and one of the main ones is Lower Sacramento Road. I mean, that is the entry point for many, many people coming in our community. Right now, it looks absolutely horrendous. On the other side of the bridge, which I know is not our county, it looks like a landfill. There's garbage dumped everywhere on both sides of the road. It literally looks like somebody emptied a truck. When you're coming into town in Galt, you're basically entering our community, and this is what you see. So I'm wondering if we could make some calls to the county. Maybe it's a simple, maybe we have to put some pressure, but I would like to strongly ask if they could do something to get that area cleaned up. I've had people come to me and say, look, if the county won't cooperate or they're slow to do it, if we can maybe get some kind of dumpster out there and we'll get some community members together and we'll go out there and pick it up ourselves.
I'll have code enforcement take a look and then contact their people on that side and then follow up further if we need to.
Okay, there's been some debris that's probably from the homeless people down there where they tend to pile up, but it's above and beyond that, and it's gotten to a point where it's just hard to ignore anymore, and it's just really, I've driven that road thousands of times in my life when I was a kid going Lower Sac, and I never remember it looking like that. It's just terrible. So I appreciate that, Chris. So with that, I guess I don't need to ask the council, but I think that's all I have tonight, so thank you.
Councilmember Bendenburg?
I actually didn't have anything, but since the public comment came out, the C Street project started initially when? 5 years ago, before I even came on to council?
Well, actually, the initial plans for that project started back when I first started with the city of Galt. Probably 2008-ish is when those plans were hatched. Now, I think the final plans are kind of close, but not exact. So there's been some revisions over time, but that's been in the works for quite some time.
And then COVID also gave it a delay. Everything kind of froze, so that's some of the reasons why things got clogged up. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Myself is a few comments. First of all, thank you for the staff. all clean reports, and every department, thank you for their hard work. And I also thank you for the public comment. And these public comment is very important for me. I believe every council member would like to get a feedback, whatever is the public comments. And I also like to thank you, everybody attend this meeting. Thank you for coming to the meeting. I did attend Old Town dinner dance. It was a very nice live country music, barbecue dinner. That's kind of small town fun and well attended. And I also like to thank you, this is organized by Chamber. Thank you for all the Chamber members, and I'll especially thank you for the council member Farmer. He was very much involved on this event. If anybody have any question, if there is no question, then I would like to adjourn that meeting 7:11. Thank you. Everybody have a